Greetings. This is Amy Wentley, Chai Knuckles Knitting, and this is episode 2020-24, Orime Armhole Finishing Applied I Cord. So this is the last in a series of 6 videos that I've done on finishing for the Orime sweater. We've done one on shoulder steaming, one on the collar extension seam, one that combined the collar extension seam to the folded collar extension, and then we did the overlapped bottom collar seam and the side seams. And this video covers the armhole finishing, and it's an applied I cord. So the instructions in your pattern at this point say, using your smaller needles, your size B double pointed needles, begin at the underarm seam with right sides facing and working 1.5 stitches from the edge, pick up and knit a certain number of stitches evenly around the armhole and purl 1 round, and bind off all stitches purlwise. So I'm going to be doing something a little bit different with you. This is where the armholes would be on your piece. You've already sewn together the front and the back. So we're going to be working on the armholes. So the instructions are telling you to pick up stitches and then work a purl round and bind off. My instructions are going to be a little different for you because I did an applied I cord to my sweater. Here, you can see it. And so the one difference is going to be, you're going to pick up your stitches 1 stitch in from the edge, not 1.5, because I want you to have this nice row of knit stitches before the I cord on the edge. Okay. And before you get started on picking up your stitches from the armhole, you're going to begin by picking them up with right side facing at the armhole edge. And before you start picking up your stitches, I would recommend that you it's not actually bisect. Measure your armhole into quarters and put a pin at every quarter, and then divide the number of stitches you need to pick up. So in my case, it was 103. That's going to be about 26 stitches, 26 or 27 stitches between each one of the markers. So as you're picking up, if you're picking up, it should be 27 between the first marker and the second marker, and 27 between the second marker and the third, like that. If you find that you're at 28 stitches before you get to the marker, you're going to have to pull it back and go back and skip some stitches. If you look like you're overshooting it, you'll have to adjust accordingly. So that's the one tip there. So as I said, what we're going to be doing, which the pattern doesn't do, the pattern has you picking up the stitches for the armhole 1.5 stitches. So this is the edge stitch over here. It curls under, and they're actually having you pick it up between the legs of this column of stitches. I want you to pick up the ladders between each of those stitches. So here's my swatch, same swatch. This is the wonky edge stitch. This is the knit stitch column next to it, and we're going to be picking up these stitches between those, the ladders between those. This is what it's going to look like after we pick up the stitches. You're going to have a whole column of pristine stitches, and then the stitches that you pick up. Okay, so here's how we do this. So you're going to have your right side facing. This is going to be your armhole. Now this is a flat piece, so I'm going to have to pretend like it's kind of in the round. But what you're going to do is you're just going to start picking up ladders between this complete column of stitches and the wonky edge stitch. And so you're going to pick up the stitch and you're going to knit. And you will use your working yarn. You don't have to cut it. You can just use your working yarn. And here it is. Leave yourself a nice long tail that you can weave in later. Oops. And so you're going to pick up each one of these ladders between the edge stitch and the next stitch. And see how I'm preserving that column of knit stitches. That's going to make it a real pretty edge for your armhole. And through most of this part, you're going to be picking up side stitches. So you'll most likely be picking up one stitch for every row. You won't be skipping ladders. Although at one point where the back folds over the front, it might be more like a top seam instead of a side seam. You may have to skip some stitches there. You'll have to judge for yourself as you get there. But it should be pretty much, you know, one ladder per stitch. So I'm going to get through all of these, and then I will show you how to start your applied I-cord. So if you're familiar with an I-cord, or maybe if you're not, I'll just tell you, it's just a tube of 3 stitches. It can be 4 sometimes, maybe 5. That makes like a cord, and it's often used for like the ties on a hoodie or the ties on a baby bonnet, those kinds of things. But it can also be done as a pretty edge, or as a bind off for that matter too. So this is called an applied I-cord because we're picking up stitches and we're applying the I-cord to the stitches that we pick up. That's why it's called applied. Okay, so you should have picked up all your stitches and you should have maintained this nice knit border here. Okay, I'm going to pretend that I'm coming around back to it's you know, an armhole, and you're going to be working this in the round is what you're going to do. So when you pick up that last stitch, you're going to be joining to the front here. So what you want to do is you want to cast on 3 stitches using the knitted cast on method. So I'm going to insert my stitches of to knit, wrap the yarn around my needle. I'm going to pull a loop through, but I'm not going to drop this stitch off my needle. And I am just going to cozy that stitch back up on my needle. And that's my first one cast on. Then I'm going to go ahead and knit this stitch again. Except it would be good if I didn't knit it with my tail. Little trick there. I do that more times than I'm proud to admit. And pull the yarn through and put it up on your left hand needle, and then one more time I'm going to knit, wrap, pull the loop through, and put it on my left hand needle. So I now have 3 stitches cast on, and these are going to be the 3 stitches for my 3-stitch I-cord. So watch what happens. I'm going to knit 2, and then I'm going to knit 2 together through the back loop. One of them is one of the ones I just cast on. One of them is part of those base stitches that I picked up. And I'm going to knit through the back loop, and that joins my I-cord to my piece. Then I'm going to move my 3 stitches back over to the left hand needle, and I'm going to go through that again. I'm going to knit 2, and then I'm going to knit 2 together through the back loop. And then I'm going to move all 3 stitches back over to the left hand needle again, and I'm going to knit 1, knit 2, and knit 2 together through the back loop. Move my 3 stitches over to the left hand needle. Knit 1, knit 2, knit 2 together through the back loop. Move back over the left needle. Now look what we have so far. We have an I-cord edge. It's rounded. We have a beautiful I-cord edge. Excuse me. Been doing a lot of talking today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pause the video for just a minute, and I'm going to come to near the end of the row and I'll show you how to finish things up. Okay, be right back. Hi, I'm back. So I just knit 2 and knit 2 through the back loop, and I have 1 stitch left from the original that I picked up. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move my 3 stitches to the left needle, and I'm going to knit 2, and I'm going to knit 2 through the back loop, and that leaves me with no stitches left on my left needle, but I've got the 3 stitches on my right needle. And so what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to slide these to the other end of the needle, and I'm going to go ahead and bring my yarn around, and I'm going to knit 2, and I'm going to bind off. This is going to be binding off. So I'm going to knit 2, and I'm going to lift the first stitch over the second to bind off the first stitch. I'm going to knit 1 more stitch and lift the first stitch over the second there, and then I'm going to cut my yarn and I'm going to pull it through. And that gives me my applied I cord. Now what you're probably going to have to do is you're going to have to actually join the end of the I cord back to the beginning of the I cord, and you can just whip stitch those together to make a nice join there, and you will be done. So that's it for the Orime finishing series. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will join me for more videos in the future. Thank you. Bye-bye.